because he provided lenient terms for readmission of Southern states that seceded from the Union. And as president, Andrew Johnson appointed governors to Southern states who in turn allowed for the election of Confederates to Congress, and these Confederates ran the state governments in the interest of the planter class. These reconstructed governments immediately initiate apartheid regimes by instituting what became known as the Black Codes, which developed into a system that became identified as Jim Crow. Now, the Black Codes denied African Americans civil rights, and the Black Codes challenged the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution. The Black Codes recognized marriage and ownership of land for Black people, but it denied them the right to vote. They could not sit on juries, and they could not testify against whites in court. They could be kept out of city and county politics, and they could not leave their place of residence unless they revealed a work permit which allowed them to travel from farm to farm. So in numerous places, Black males especially, were arrested on the slightest pretext. They were sent to prison and then leased out as workers to private corporations. And many private corporations, especially from the North, took advantage of this incarcerated labor force. This became known as the convict lease system. And this new form of slave labor is still with us today. It is still in operation. So let's appreciate the new Jim Crow. Let's take a look at a film clip that helps us understand something about slavery by another name.
Mr. President, I have a brother about 14 years old. A man hired him from me and I heard of him no more. He went and sold him to McGree and they've been working him in prison for 12 months. I asked him to let me have him, but he won't let him go.
For a period of nearly 80 years, between the Civil War and World War II, Black Southerners were no longer slaves, but they were not yet free. In one of the most shameful and little-known chapters of American history, generations of Black Southerners were forced to labor against their will.
From almost the first moment, white Southerners were responding to try to put African Americans back into a position as close to slavery as they possibly could.
The Old South and what was quickly becoming the New South could not proceed without the work of African Americans.
But if you had something for free in the past, you don't necessarily want to pay for it now.
It was a straight, simple, exploitative system. There was only power, there was only force, and there was only brutality.
What happened in that period of time was so much more terrible than anything most Americans recognize or understand today. The depth of poverty, the inability of African Americans to access any of the mechanisms of wealth achievement and growth are all rooted in this terroristic kind of regime that existed in so many places.
Their ability to have what we call the American dream. That is what has been stolen from Black folks all through the South. And that legacy has to be understood so that people will be able to speak to it and give our ancestors voice.
Okay, so as described earlier in the first presentation of this course, the racialization process created a population that was in a disadvantaged position. And the Black communities in the United States faced the four-part process of social racial discrimination, of educational deprivation, political disfranchisement, and economic marginality. So again, acute disillusionment robs life of its meaning, and so a new system of explanation and rationale for action must be created self-consciously. Any community facing prejudice, discrimination, segregation responds in a variety of manners by which to survive the racialization process. There are those who assimilate, there are those who accommodate, and there are those who resist. So we're going to take a look at movements for change within the black community that follow the three different paths. We'll take a look at those who assimilated, those who accommodated, and those who resisted. Because in this way, we can appreciate how communities are diverse in their responses to change. So let's start with assimilation.